The forest was too quiet that morning, the kind of silence that presses against your chest and makes every step feel like trespassing. Dew clung to the air, cold and metallic, as though the ground itself was holding its breath. That was when I heard it, faint at first, almost mistaken for wind, the whimper of a dog. It was a fractured sound, sharp in the stillness, and it stopped me dead in my tracks. I turned toward it, pushing through tall grass and the smell of wet bark, until the shape of the fallen tree came into view. A thick trunk heavy with moss lay broken across the forest floor. And there, half hidden beneath its weight, was a German shepherd. His chest rose in shallow, uneven pulls, his eyes glazed but pleading. His paw was twisted beneath the wood, dirt streaking the fur where he had clawed desperately at the earth, trying to free himself. For a moment, I couldn't move. The sight was unbearable. A proud animal brought low, trapped in silence, waiting either for death or for someone willing to stop. The forest never felt like this before. I had walked its trails 100 times, memorized the way the morning sun dripped through the canopy, how the damp soil clung to my boots, how the birds stitched their songs into the air. But that morning the forest was wrong. The stillness wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, unnerving, as if nature itself had pressed pause. No bird, no rustle, no insect hum. Only silence thick as fog. My steps slowed. Something in me resisted the quiet, my chest tightening with each breath. It was then I heard it. A sound so faint I thought my mind had conjured it. A thin whimper, fragile, like glass about to shatter. I stopped, holding my breath, and the sound came again. Not wind, not an echo. Pain. I turned my head toward the sound, heart pounding as I pushed through the brush. Branches scraped against my arms, snagging at my jacket, but I didn't stop. The air grew colder, damp with the weight of moss and shadow. And then I saw it, the tree. Thick and ancient, sprawled broken across the earth. Its roots clawed up like twisted fingers, its trunk splintered as if the sky itself had struck it down. Movement. At first, my mind resisted the truth. A shape low to the ground, half buried by fallen branches. Then the eyes. Dark pools of agony, locked onto me with a kind of pleading I had never felt before. A German shepherd. His body was pinned, his paw crushed beneath the thick trunk. His chest rose in shallow, uneven pulls, each breath edged with a whimper that cut straight through me. I froze. My body wanted to run, to step back into the silence and let the forest reclaim its secret. But those eyes, glassy yet alive, held me there. The dog had been fighting. The ground around him was torn, clawed by desperate paws that had scraped until the earth gave no more. The fur on his side was matted with dirt, his nails broken. He had been here for hours, maybe all night, waiting for someone who might never come. A storm of thoughts tore through me. I can't move that tree. I don't have tools. What if he bites me? What if I hurt him worse? But beneath the panic was something deeper, a guilt, raw and undeniable. If I walked away now, those eyes would follow me forever. I dropped to my knees beside him, the damp earth soaking through my jeans. The smell of pine, soil, and wet fur filled my lungs. Hey, it's okay, I whispered, my voice trembling. My hand hovered above his head, cautious. His ears flicked weakly, his gaze locking tighter onto mine. And then, a small lick of his tongue. Barely there, but enough. He wasn't asking, he was trusting. The weight of that trust nearly broke me. I pressed my hands against the tree, testing it. Solid, immovable, as if the earth itself had chosen to bury him alive. My palms slipped against the damp bark, my shoulders straining as I shoved with all the strength I had. Nothing, the trunk didn't even groan. Sweat beaded on my forehead despite the chill. The shepherd whimpered again, softer this time, and it sounded like surrender. No, I muttered, teeth gritted. Not like this. Not today. I circled the trunk, searching for weakness. Broken branches jutted out like jagged ribs. Most glistened in the morning light. My breaths came quick, shallow. Every second felt stolen. His chest was rising slower, his eyes dimming. The forest around us seemed to tighten, waiting for the ending. I dropped back to his side, brushing dirt gently from his fur. His paw was twisted at an unnatural angle, blood seeping slow and dark. The sight turned my stomach. I don't know if I can do this, I whispered, my throat raw. But I'll try. His eyes fluttered, closing, then opening again with a fragile determination that mirrored my own. I had never seen resilience captured so clearly, not in people, not in books. Only here in the eyes of a dying dog, begging me not to give up. The silence of the forest grew unbearable, pressing down with invisible weight. Every sound became sharp, the drip of water from the leaves, the quick thud of my heartbeat, the shallow rasp of his breath. I felt small beneath the enormity of it all, but also chosen. Like fate had bent the path of my walk just to place me here, in this impossible moment. I planted my feet in the damp soil again, fingers digging into the bark. My muscles screamed as I pushed, every tendon straining. Veins burning beneath my skin, the trunk shifted, barely an inch, maybe less, but it moved. The shepherd whimpered louder this time, the sound stabbing into me like electricity. Hope. I let go, collapsing to my knees, lungs heaving. My arms shook uncontrollably. My palms were scraped raw. But that tiny movement was enough to ignite something. He was still alive. He could be freed. I pressed my forehead against the cool bark, whispering to him, to myself, to the universe, hold on, please, just hold on. The forest no longer felt silent. It felt alive, alive with the battle unfolding in its shadows. And as I looked back into the shepherd's eyes, something unspoken passed between us. This wasn't just about survival. This was about trust, about choosing to fight for a life that wasn't my own, about kindness heavy enough to move trees. And in that moment, I knew I would not walk away. The bark dug into my palms as I braced against the trunk again, heart hammering with the desperate rhythm of someone outmatched. My breath puffed white in the cool air, scattering into the silence, but my body screamed at me to stop. The tree was heavier than anything I had ever tried to lift, its girth thick as a man's chest, its roots tangled like the veins of the earth itself. Each push rattled through my bones, every muscle seizing with protest. The shepherd whimpered once more, a sound that had lost sharpness, grown thin and ragged. It felt less like a cry for help and more like a whisper goodbye. That terrified me more than anything. I pressed harder, shifting my stance, trying to wedge my shoulder beneath the bark. My boots sank deeper into the soil. The trunk groaned, a low ancient sound, but refused to give more than the cruel inch it had teased before. I collapsed backward, mud splattering my arms, chest heaving with exhaustion. My throat burned, my head spun. A wave of futility crashed over me. What was I doing here, really? A single person, no rope, no lever, no help. Just me against the weight of the world. And he was suffering because I wasn't enough. The shepherd's breathing stuttered, shallow. His eyes blinked with slow heaviness, and I felt panic flood me like ice water. Don't you close your eyes, I pleaded, crawling back to him. My hand trembled as I stroked his dirt-matted fur. Stay with me. I'm not done. I swear I'm not done. The air smelled sharp with pine and wet decay, thick with the ache of autumn. My sweat mingled with the cold dew, running in streams down my temple. Above me, the sky was slipping from gray to a pale fractured blue, as though the sun itself was uncertain whether to rise. I clenched my jaw. If the universe wasn't going to make this easy, then I would carve a way out myself. I scrambled to my feet and scanned the forest floor. Broken branches, thick sticks, splinters of the fallen tree scattered like bones. An idea flickered, a memory of leverage, of school lessons about fulcrums and weight. A stick could become more than a stick if angled right. I gathered the largest branch I could carry, dragging it back to the trunk. The wood was damp, heavy, rough against my hands, but it was hope. I wedged it beneath the bark, pressing it into the soil as a lever. My heart pounded with new resolve as I threw my weight against it, gritting my teeth until my jaw ached. The branch flexed, groaned, cracked under the strain, but the tree shifted just enough for me to hear the soil crumble beneath its weight. A gasp tore from my lungs. Progress. But then the branch snapped. The sound echoed like a gunshot, sharp and final. I stumbled, falling hard against the mud. The jagged end of the broken branch stabbed the ground uselessly. My arms hung limp, trembling. I wanted to scream, to tear at the earth in frustration, but the shepherd's soft whine kept me tethered. His eyes were open still, fixed on me, holding me accountable. I closed my own eyes, forcing my breath steady. Quitting wasn't an option. If this was my fight, then I would fight it 100 different ways until something gave. I crawled through the undergrowth again, this time searching further. The forest floor yielded more fallen limbs, thicker and sturdier. I found one nearly the size of my arm, straight and strong, stripped of bark. Perfect. I carried it back, lungs aching from the effort. This time, I set it deeper, finding a hollow beneath the trunk where the earth had already sagged. I pressed my full weight onto it, legs braced, sweat blinding my eyes. The shepherd whimpered louder. He felt the shift. My teeth clenched, a growl rising from my chest as though I were wrestling the tree itself. My muscles shook violently, veins burning. The trunk shifted, 2 inches, maybe 3. Enough for his paw to twitch. "Come on," I cried, voice breaking. "Just a little more." But my strength faltered. My arms buckled. The branch groaned, threatening to betray me again. My vision blurred, red at the edges. The tree dropped back into place with a brutal finality, and the shepherd cried out, a raw, guttural sound that carved me in two. I fell to my knees beside him, chest on fire, every breath a knife. My hands shook as I touched his fur again. He licked weakly at my wrist, his tongue barely grazing the dirt-smeared skin. Even in agony. He offered comfort. He gave what little he had left. Tears burned hot against my face. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm so damn sorry. You don't deserve this." The weight of my failure pressed down heavier than the tree itself. Yet beneath that crushing despair, something stirred. His lick, his eyes. He hadn't given up. And if he hadn't, then neither could I. I wiped my face with the back of my sleeve, smearing mud and tears together. My mind raced. If brute force wasn't enough, then I needed to be smarter. I scanned the ground again, stones, more branches, a slope in the land I hadn't noticed before. The tree rested unevenly. Maybe that was the key. If I could create a wedge lifted from the slant, gravity itself might help me. I gathered rocks, heavy and slick, piling them near the trunk. Each one was a battle to carry, arms straining, knees sinking into mud. But soon I had a crude foundation. I jammed another thick branch beneath the trunk, angled against the stones, and pressed down. My body screamed in protest, tendons threatening to snap, but the trunk rose higher than before, 4, maybe 5 inches. The shepherd yelped, paw twitching with hope. "Hold on," I shouted, my own voice cracking. My hands were blistered, nails torn, but I didn't care. Every ounce of me went into that branch, muscles quivering on the edge of collapse. The trunk shifted again, a low groan of ancient wood giving way. The shepherd's paw slid slightly free. I gasped, almost sobbing at the sight. For the first time, freedom didn't feel impossible. But I couldn't hold it. My arms buckled, and the trunk slammed back with a sickening thud, though not as heavy as before. His paw was still pinned, but looser, the weight slightly less cruel. I collapsed into the mud, chest heaving, body broken. Yet as I lay there, staring at the canopy above, a strange calm washed through me. The tree hadn't won yet. It had shifted, yielded, and I had learned its weakness. Beside me, the shepherd's breath rasped, but steadier than before. His eyes locked on mine, not with despair this time, but with something fragile. Trust, yes, but also endurance. He was still fighting. And if he could endure the crushing weight of a tree, then I could endure the weight of exhaustion and failure. The forest was no longer silent. It pulsed with my heartbeat, with his ragged breaths, with the creak of branches as though the world itself was leaning in. I pressed my forehead into the mud and whispered, "We're not done. Not yet." And deep inside, I believed it. The sun had finally broken through the canopy, spilling thin streaks of pale gold across the forest floor. The light caught the moss and made it shimmer like wet silk, but it felt cruel, mocking almost, illuminating how far from free we still were. I wiped the sweat from my brow with the back of my hand, smearing mud across my skin. My arms ached as though the weight of that tree had carved itself into my bones. The shepherd lay quiet now, too quiet. His chest still moved, but slowly, shallowly, each rise and fall so faint, I found myself holding my breath just to see it happen. His eyes half closed, lids heavy with exhaustion, and for a moment terror gripped me. What if that spark inside him went out before I found the strength to free him? I couldn't let that happen. Not after coming this far. I knelt down, pressing a hand gently against his ribs, feeling the fragile thrum of life beneath fur and bone. "Stay with me," I whispered, my voice cracked and raw. "I swear to you, I'm going to get you out." His ear twitched faintly at the sound, a tiny flicker of response, and I clung to it like it was the only thing keeping me from unraveling. But inside me, another battle raged. A voice whispering doubts I didn't want to hear. You're wasting time. You're going to watch him die here. You'll walk away carrying his ghost. The words dug deep, rooted in old wounds I had tried to bury, failures I couldn't erase, people I hadn't saved when I should have. The helplessness had a taste I recognized, metallic, suffocating, familiar. I squeezed my eyes shut, gripping the bark of the trunk as though I could wring courage from it. My body was a storm of trembling exhaustion, but inside my chest, something burned hotter. Maybe this dog wasn't just a stranger in the woods. Maybe he was every chance I had ever missed, every mistake I could never undo. Maybe he was the universe giving me one more chance to fight, to prove to myself that I wasn't powerless. The thought hit me hard. If I let him die, I let every ghost win. I forced myself up, legs shaking, lungs tight. The branch turned, lever still lay in the mud, cracked but not broken entirely. I grabbed it again, shoving the end under the trunk where the soil sagged deepest. This time, I didn't just push with my arms. I braced my entire weight against it, teeth gritted, shouting into the stillness with each surge of effort. The trunk groaned, the earth trembled with the strain. Inch by inch, it lifted, slow, agonizing, but enough to let a shard of light slip beneath it. The shepherd whined, louder this time. His paw twitched again, a desperate scrape against the earth. I gasped through clenched teeth. Yes, that's it. But my arms were on fire, every tendon screaming for relief. My vision blurred, and black spots sparking at the edges. I felt the lever shake under the pressure, threatening to snap again. My body begged me to stop, but the dog's cry fueled me, every sound a plea and a command. I roared, a sound I didn't recognize as my own, and shoved harder. My muscles burned, veins bulging, skin tearing at the palms where bark cut deep. The trunk rose higher, almost half a foot now, enough for freedom to no longer feel impossible. The shepherd struggled, paws scraping weakly against the loosened soil, but he couldn't pull himself out. The weight was still there, the angle wrong. His cry tore through me, raw and urgent. He needed me to do more. I've got you, I panted, voice breaking. I'm not letting go. I shifted, balancing the lever with my shoulder as I reached with one trembling hand toward his paw. His fur was wet with blood, slick against my fingers. I tried to pull gently, but he yelped, jerking back in pain. My chest clenched. I wanted to scream with frustration. So close, so damn close. My strength gave out. The branch cracked, and the trunk slammed back down with a thunderous thud. The ground shook beneath us, dirt puffing into the air. The shepherd howled in pain, then fell silent, his breath ragged, eyes glazed with despair. I staggered backward, collapsing into the mud, tears streaming down my face. My chest heaved, my hands bled, my body trembled with the uselessness of it all. The forest spun around me, the canopy above blurring with the sting of failure. God, why? I whispered, choking on the words. Why put me here if I can't save him? For a long moment, I let the silence answer me. The rustle of distant leaves, the faint caw of a crow somewhere far away, the universe indifferent, and then movement. The shepherd's head lifted barely but enough. His eyes found mine again, locking onto me with a determination that stole my breath. He licked the air once, his tongue catching nothing, but the gesture was unmistakable. Don't stop. Something inside me shattered and rebuilt itself in the same breath. He hadn't given up, not yet. And if he hadn't, then I couldn't either. I dragged myself back to his side, laying a hand gently against his head. Okay? I whispered, voice trembling but steadying with each word. Okay. We're going to do this together. The forest no longer felt like an enemy. The silence wasn't suffocating now. It was listening, holding its breath for what would happen next. The air smelled sharper, cleaner, as though the earth itself wanted this life spared. I searched the ground again, this time slower, sharper, deliberate. I found another branch, thicker and stronger than the last, stripped of bark and solid as bone. I found stones, larger ones, dragged them with every ounce of strength I could still muster, piling them carefully into a makeshift wedge. Each piece felt like building a bridge between despair and hope. The shepherd watched me through half-lidded eyes, his breath shallow but steady, as though he understood what I was doing. as though he believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. When everything was set, I pressed my weight down again. My arms screamed, my back threatened to give, but the trunk lifted once more. This time it rose higher, steadier, supported by the rocks I'd wedged beneath. The shepherd whimpered, paw twitching with urgency. His body shifted, struggling weakly. I reached with both hands, cradling his injured paw as gently as I could. He yelped, but I whispered over and over, "It's okay? It's okay, I've got you," until my voice was a chant woven with tears. The trunk shuddered, threatening to fall, but I pulled. Every muscle, every ounce of will, every broken piece of me went into that motion. The paw slid free, bloodied and trembling, and the shepherd gasped a sharp cry of pain and of release. The tree slammed down a second later, shaking the ground with its ancient weight. But his paw was no longer beneath it. I fell back, clutching the shepherd against me, tears hot against my mud-streaked skin. His body trembled, racked with pain, but alive. Alive, his eyes met mine wide and wet, and for the first time since I had found him, I saw something pure and unbroken gratitude. And in that fragile, flickering spark, the weight of the world didn't feel quite so heavy anymore. For a moment after the tree crashed back into the earth, there was only silence. The kind of silence that carries its own weight, pressing into your ears until the blood rushing in your veins becomes the loudest sound in the world. My arms trembled as they circled the shepherd, my chest heaving with ragged gasps. I could hardly believe it. His paw, once crushed beneath the trunk, was now resting in my hands. Mangled, bloodied, but free, I pressed my forehead against his fur, inhaling the smell of damp earth and copper tang. "You're out," I whispered, voice trembling. "You're safe." He whimpered softly, leaning into me despite the pain. His head pressed against my shoulder with a weight that felt heavier than the fallen tree had ever been. Not in burden, but in meaning. He had been trapped, broken, silenced, and now he was leaning on me as if to say, "You did it. You chose me." The forest seemed to breathe with us. Where it had felt suffocating before, it now exhaled a wind that stirred the branches above. Sunlight filtered through the leaves in fractured beams, painting the shepherd's fur with trembling light. The air smelled fresher, cleaner, as though nature itself was acknowledging that life had been pulled back from its jaws. But he was far from healed. His paw was swollen, twisted unnaturally. Every twitch of his muscles made him wince. He couldn't stand, not yet, maybe not for days. His breaths came faster now, not with despair but with pain, and I knew the battle wasn't over. Freedom was only the first step, survival still hung by a thread. I tore at my jacket, ripping the fabric into strips with shaking hands. My fingers were clumsy, slick with mud and blood, but determination steadied me. I wrapped the cloth around his paw, tightening it just enough to slow the bleeding. He yelped once, then stilled, his eyes fixed on mine. Trust radiated from him, raw and guarded and absolute. It broke something inside me. How could an animal, battered and left to die, still have the courage to trust a stranger? My throat tightened, tears spilling freely now. I stroked his head with my free hand, voice cracking. "I don't deserve this," I whispered. "But I promise I won't let you down." He blinked slowly, eyes glassy but soft. That was his answer. I shifted, sliding my arms beneath his body. He was heavier than I expected, solid muscle even in his weakened state. My back screamed, my hands protested, but I lifted him anyway. His body tensed at first, a sharp whine escaping. But then he relaxed against my chest, pressing close as though surrendering the last of his weight to me. The world around us seemed transformed. The forest, once oppressive, now carried the hum of life again. Birds called distantly, tentative but returning. The wind rustled the branches in a gentle cadence, like a hymn sung only for us. Even the broken tree, lying lifeless on the ground, felt less like a symbol of despair and more like a monument to the struggle we had overcome together. Carrying him wasn't easy. Every step felt like moving through water, my legs heavy, my arms burning with the effort. But I held him close, his heartbeat pressed against mine, and each thud of his heart fueled me forward. His breath warmed the side of my neck, uneven but steady. With every inhale, I felt the fragile spark of life refusing to be extinguished. We moved slowly, wending through the underbrush, past the roots that jutted like jagged bones from the earth. sunlight spilled in greater measure now, dappling the ground with shifting patches of gold. Each patch felt like a promise: keep moving, keep carrying, keep fighting. Halfway through the clearing, exhaustion caught me. My knees buckled, the weight of him dragging me to the forest floor. I lowered him gently onto the grass, collapsing beside him. My arms shook violently, lungs burning as though I had been sprinting for miles. I wanted to stay down, to surrender to the ache clawing through my body. But then I looked at him. He was watching me, even in pain, even half-broken. His eyes were steady, unflinching. There was no judgment in them, only a silent plea: don't stop now. I reached for his paw, stroking it gently over the makeshift bandage. We're not done, I whispered. Not until you're safe. With shaking legs, I lifted him again. My body screamed in protest, but my heart refused to yield. Step by step, I pushed forward, cradling him as though he were the most precious thing I had ever carried, and maybe he was. The forest path opened wider ahead, sunlight pooling at the edge like an invitation. My breaths came sharp, sweat dripping into my eyes, but the shepherd stirred slightly, shifting his head against my chest. His tongue flicked weakly, brushing against my hand. A kiss. Not of desperation this time, but of thanks. Tears blurred my vision. The ache in my arms, the mud on my clothes, the sting of open blisters, all of it faded against that single gesture. That lick was his voice, his way of telling me that my fight had meant something. That kindness had broken the chains of his suffering. By the time we reached the forest's edge, the world felt different. The trees opened into a meadow, grass swaying in the breeze, sky stretching wide and endless above. The shepherd lifted his head faintly, his eyes widening at the sight of open space, of freedom. His breath came easier now, still pained but no longer ragged with despair. I lowered him gently onto the grass, my arms trembling with relief. He sprawled awkwardly, his injured paw extended, but his chest rose stronger, fuller. His ears flicked at the sounds of distant life. The rustle of leaves, the hum of insects, the song of birds returning. He was alive, and the world seemed to celebrate it with us. I collapsed beside him, lying on my back in the grass, staring at the sky. The blue above felt brighter than I had ever seen, streaked with clouds like brushstrokes across a canvas. My chest ached with exhaustion, but inside something deeper stirred, a sense of wholeness, of redemption. The shepherd shifted weakly, dragging his body closer until his head rested against my arm. His eyes closed, finally allowing himself to rest, secure in the knowledge that he was no longer alone. I turned my head, watching him breathe, and felt a quiet peace settle over me. The weight of the world had been heavy, crushing, relentless. But in the end, it wasn't strength alone that freed him. It was something far more fragile, far more powerful: kindness. And in that moment, as the forest stretched open around us, I realized that kindness had freed me too. The shepherd slept at last, safe, his breath steady against the quiet of the evening. Outside, the sun melted into orange and crimson, but inside there was only peace. He had survived. I had not walked away. And in that fragile silence, with his paw resting against my arm, I understood. This was not just his rescue. It was mine too. We were both home. The forest had tried to silence him forever, but kindness broke through. From the crushing weight of despair to the quiet safety of home, this rescue became more than survival. It became a bond. He found a second chance at life, and in saving him, a piece of my own heart was rescued too. And as he slept peacefully, his paw resting against me, I knew we were both finally home.